Okay, so it's right at 7 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started. Starting with announcements, open session and public comments. Do we have any announcements or comments from the public? Okay, moving on to administrative, and again, just to repeat, roll call. We have myself, Joe, Skip, Kurt, Alfred, Will. Anyone else that I missed? Okay.
I don't see Kevin on.
Yeah, no, I don't. His schedule's probably different now that he's going back to school. So we do have two administrative things, notes of meeting that the first set was from, if you can believe it, June 1st. They were published for the subsequent meeting, but we didn't have a quorum. Actually, I think maybe twice we didn't. So I've reissued those, and I'd ask you to take a look at that, and we'll go through that. And then after that, we'll do the minutes of meeting from the more recent one of September 1st. So go ahead and take a look at the June 1st ones, and I'll entertain a motion to approve. Okay, any takers on the motion to make a motion?
Make a motion to move that the June 1st, 2021, 7 p.m. meeting, that the minutes be moved into the record as presented.
Okay, looking for a second.
I'll second that.
Joe, okay. And I see Kevin just joined. Good evening, Kevin.
I'm asking him to unmute.
Unmute, Kevin.
Yes.
Kevin's unmuted.
All right, very good. We just entertained a motion to accept the minutes from June 1st, and we're about to vote on it.
Very good.
So we'll start the voting on the June 1st minutes of meeting, starting with Alfred.
Aye.
Kurt.
Abstain, I wasn't there.
I thought you were. No, my bad. Okay. Kevin.
Aye.
Skip.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
And Chris, aye. Okay, so we're done with that. Let's move on to the more recent minutes of meeting, which are the ones from the September 1st meeting. Again, take a few minutes to review those. Oh, we had perfect attendance that night.
Unless anybody sees anything, I would move that we accept the minutes of September
Now,
1st.
I would like to draw your attention to 4.2 and 4.3. Alfred noted there should be some discussion to determine any shellfish department preparations to be made prior to the start of dredging. The discussion should include the GEI engineer. Will was going to arrange for that discussion. Did it take place?
Is this part of the minutes?
Yes.
Well, those are the minutes of that meeting, but yes, I did talk with Nancy. But you're talking about the minutes of that meeting, you're approving the minutes.
Right. The minutes of that meeting suggest that a few days hence there would be a meeting. So yeah, the minutes of the meeting can only
Minutes
capture
are-
the
yeah, the minutes are accurate.
not the reality.
So did the meeting take place? Alfred and Will, did it take place?
I had to take that day off. So, but I did talk with Nancy and the engineer on the phone on that day off. And Nancy's meeting with Dan Robbins, the engineer, and going over what they need to know. And then as soon as the select board signs in this bid tomorrow night and approves the contract, then we can meet with the contractor as well.
Alfred, did you participate in that meeting?
No, this is all news to me.
Because, Will, you were going to include Alfred because he brought up the item.
But as I said, Joe, I wasn't there, but you're still approving the minutes, aren't you?
No, we're having discussion before a final vote on the minutes.
Yeah, but our discussion has nothing to do with the minutes. It's a point of order, Joe.
Well, the point of order is minutes are never approved until members approve them, and there's discussion on them. There's
Yeah,
possible,
but Joe, what you're
amendments
discussing
made
is
to
not
the
the
minutes.
minutes.
there's possible amendments made to the minutes. There's
No,
also
the minutes are what
questions-
actually happened.
There's also questions about the minutes.
I think the question about whether the meeting occurred or not could be part of tonight's discussion and therefore could be and would be captured in the minutes from tonight. So far as what was discussed on September the 1st, I believe it's as written there that the plan going forward was to have that meeting. So if we want to get into the discussion about the meeting itself, that would be tonight's discussion and therefore captured in tonight's minutes.
Yeah, I
that-
concur
fine.
on your
That's
comment
fine.
there, Chris.
Yeah, let's move ahead.
Okay, so we still have a motion and did I hear
I
a second?
second it.
I'm sorry, start over. Did anyone make a motion to approve these?
Yeah, I moved that we approve the minutes from. September.
Yeah, okay, I was in the midst. Okay, and the second?
I seconded it.
Okay, so we'll move to the vote, starting with Alfred,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Kevin,
Aye.
Skip,
Aye,
Joe,
Aye.
Chris, aye. Okay. So we could probably move on to the next agenda item, which is the status of the dredging contract. And I guess, Will, you want to give us an update on that?
Yeah, that's going forward tomorrow night. AP Law has said that they will weigh in before tomorrow night's meeting if they have any issues with it. And then otherwise it'll be at the select board meeting tomorrow.
I didn't hear what Will said. Who's gonna weigh in on it?
KP Law will weigh in on it by tomorrow night's meeting, the town council.
In regards to Bobby Hours?
Yeah, if there's any reason to hold it up.
Okay.
Chris, our last meeting was before the bid openings, so I think the members want to be informed about those bids. Burnham was the low bidder below Cashman and Robert Hour. And
Actually, our last meeting was the day of, and
yes.
we had sent out that spreadsheet, but
We did. So we then had a subsequent meeting and GEI recommended Burnham, and that's what's going to go before the board tomorrow night.
right.
But there was a conflict with that. They set up, Hours said that they didn't have all their documentation in the sealed bid. Correct?
no, it had to do with, did they,
DOT.
that the other company that you're talking about did not have in their mandate certification from the state of Massachusetts that there was funding being done and that therefore this contract was covered under the state of Massachusetts regulations.
Yeah, specifically, they had to be on the Mass DOT pre-qualified list. And so the formal protest, which I think everyone here received a copy of, was submitted by Robert B. Auer. He pointed to the fact or claimed that both Coastline and Burnham didn't comply by virtue of not being DOT pre-qualified. In the case of Coastline, that's a true statement. And in fact, they were disqualified at time of bid opening because it was confirmed they were not DOT approved. Burnham, on the other hand, was DOT approved, albeit just recently, but prior to the bid opening. And so based on that, we and the engineers recommended that we proceed with Burnham. And I believe KP Law, as a minimum, is going to respond or draft a response to the formal complaint. To go back to Robert B. Auer, that's procedurally, that's the appropriate thing to do, is to respond.
But if they didn't have their paperwork in, isn't that the purpose of a sealed bid? You meet all the
the
qualifications.
purpose of the requirement was that they be pre-qualified, and in fact they were. They had been pre-qualified at the most recent DOT review, and DOT had confirmed that. So they meet the requirement for being pre-qualified by DOT.
Okay. And we're just going with the recommendation of GTI, right? Because I'll be honest with you, I was really happy with Bobby Auer's work that he did on the pier before. In bidding jobs, you never take the low one or the high one. You always look for something in the middle.
The low one would have been Coastline, although they didn't qualify. I think Burnham's experience list, particularly in dredging, not just marine construction, but dredging, the subject of our proposal, RFP. He has pretty strong experience on dredging. He was the next low guy after Coastline. And if I recall, he's about $500,000 below Robert B. Auer.
You're right. But Bobby Auer did a great job at Sassuat Harbor too.
Well, the Burnham also had done the Wellfleet Harbor the last time it was dredged with all the slips.
Yeah.
Burnham also did Situate, Plymouth Harbor.
I understand. I'm just bringing up another point of view.
Got it.
That,
Yeah.
we also have, we talk about keeping business local and blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to it, we really don't. We go with the lowest bidder. That's my only thing. And Bobby Auer did a great job on the pier.
But there's also procurement rules as well.
Highest and lowest. You don't have to take the lowest.
One thing that we heard, Kevin, was that the engineer had some reservations about our having enough equipment and taking on a job this size.
As I said, he did a great job at Sassuat Harbor. That was that's pretty big to what the same size as we got in the back there. Just bringing up the other side of the argument.
Yeah.
And again,
as a reminder, we had this motion to accept Burnham on our last meeting, September 1st.
I understand.
Okay.
And this is just a discussion, as you said.
Agreed. Yeah.
And this is going to feed into another situation we got coming up about concerning a clerk of the works, because we all don't really at times agree with Dan. And I've never met him because I work there in the day when all these meetings are going on. So just part of the discussion.
Okay, shall we move on to the next item, which is in fact Clerk of the Works?
Absolutely.
We had a brief discussion, I guess it was on the September 1st call, about the need and the attraction of having Clerk of the Works. So we have more supervision, certainly representative of the town and representing the town's interest in this. I had said, I think on the last call, that I pondered whether we could do it with our internal resources. And since that time, I've gone ahead and offered my services to be the clerk of the work, to volunteer to do that. It's engineering construction is what my career has been. This is well within my strike zone. I would envision going down to the pier several times a day, certainly 2, sometimes 3 at various times, talking to the contractor, filling out our own report on behalf of the town. And that would include the weather conditions, what equipment is in use, where it's deployed, where the environmental barriers are set up for that day, wind, weather, wind direction, what the manpower is that he's doing, and anything else that I either observe or learn in discussion with the contractor.
That's a very generous offer, Chris. Does anybody have any concerns about that?
Any concerns on it? I'm well aware of Chris's background in the field of engineering, design, and construction. So to me, we're fortunate to have somebody with his background that's actually a resident of the town, as opposed to picking somebody that may, not be so acute to what we've been doing, particularly since he's been on the dredge task force and he's been after it day after day after day. So I think he's excellent candidate for that position.
Is that a motion, Skip?
I'll make that a motion, definitely.
Actually, we should put it in motion form, and I think the select board then has to approve it as well.
All right, I
Second
make a
motion,
motion that Chris Alger be appointed as the clerk of the works for the 2021 dredging operation in Wellfleet Harbor.
I'll second that. Alfred, you did the job before. Anything special of note?
No, I think that he's, I think he hit the high points, the weather, some of those other things, so that, if there's a problem later on, because, Will did agree that there was days that we thought that the last time the dredge was working and the engineer said it was, we sat in the parking lot, the engineer wasn't here. So, and I think what Chris is going to miss, I think he's going to make up on the fact that his heart's been in it because he's been volunteering to do the dredging anyways. It's kind of unusual to get somebody who's been living our dream to kind of pay attention to make sure our dream comes true.
So I second that motion.
Kurt already did.
Let's vote on it then.
Okay.
Is it
Go to
dog
vote.
included?
Alfred,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Kevin,
Aye.
Skip,
All right,
Joe.
Aye.
I suppose I'm in favor of it by virtue of having volunteered.
Chris, thank you very much for that. That really is a gift to the town, and it's not an insignificant commitment on your part, and I certainly, I'm sure everybody feels the same way, but that's we're all grateful for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I look forward to doing it, though. It's, we've come a long way, and we need to get to the end.
Hopefully you don't go bald like Joe and I.
I didn't realize that was the result of Clerk of the Works, although it could very well be.
Years of running my hand over my head.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to an update on permit activity. And I want to acknowledge, Rebecca, I noticed you joined, so I got you on the attendance sheet.
Yeah.
Okay, permit activity. Joe, you want to give us some updates on that?
Sure. Work goes on to secure the permit for Area 2, the mooring field. And we got a strong endorsement from our congressional delegation, who contacted the nominee to be Assistant Secretary of the Army, who oversees the Army Corps. A new public notice was issued. There's some indication that the New England division of the Army Corps is feeling the heat from the Army Corps in Washington and the congressional delegation. We're working on a response to the public notice and working with our lobbyists as well. And that's pretty much it.
And I guess maybe for clarification, the public notice is just a procedural thing that they had to issue. It's, it was not in response to any of the previous discussions or disagreements. It's a procedural thing. Likewise, though, we want to take advantage of the opportunity to respond to it.
You might be muted, Joe. Were you saying something?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I noticed that Janet had sent along something with regard to the open space and there was some discussion in her email about one of the parcels being potential for mitigation relative to the permit. Is that something that's still in play, Joe?
Yeah, we've been compiling a list, Janet is on it, of the projects that are ongoing in town. And at some point, are going to try to narrow those down to present as a response to the public notice.
In the public notice, it's interesting. The notice opines on various things and then usually follows up and says, the Corps engineer has determined there's no significant impact. But there is a sentence in there that the applicant is reviewing opportunities for mitigation beyond optimizing or something like that. So that's the very item that we're responding to that Joe's referring to. And the lead in to that response is along the lines of pointing out to them how much of the land in Wellfleet is already spoken for, either because of the National Seashore or various other land trusts, conservation trusts, et cetera. We do conservation on our own, not just when we're forced to by some regulatory agency. And as a result, there are very few opportunities left. And so we point that out. And in doing so, we plan to list recent and current mitigation or conservation type activities, such as converting the land, the one that you saw from Janet. We're going to potentially transfer from the town to the Conservation Trust. We're pointing out the Hilda Trust, particularly because some of that is intertidal. Obviously, the Herring River project. These are all major projects, and so
The other one that's adjacent to is Mayo Creek. That was approved by town meeting. as well to move
Yeah,
forward?
yeah, we have that on the list.
We
Yeah,
have it on the list, but you know what we don't have yet, and Kurt, if you could do this, we just need a little blurb on it as to what it is.
yeah.
It was
You know, when
approved.
John Reel did his presentation on that before the Marina Committee, he submitted that and I have it. So I'll get it out.
Oh, okay, so for all these things that we're listing, we're providing a little bit of details, not reams and reams of data or reports, which the agencies probably wouldn't read, but enough to capture the flavor of it and the size of it. You know, the Hilda Trust, I think, is 168 acres.
So the other thing that just occurred to me about both Mayo Creek and we're also looking at a salt marsh restoration for Howes Pond, which is at the head of Duck Creek. But Mayo Creek in particular is directly adjacent to the habitat that they're concerned about. And the change from a duckbill to a self-regulating tide gate would allow the free passage of, the species of concern that they have. So it's like I can't think of anything that's even, more direct in terms of, mitigation and increase in, turtle habitat, et cetera. Eel habitat, many of the species that they're concerned about. So I'm happy to provide anything more, Joe, if we want to talk about it offline, just to, put a little paragraph together that might respond specifically to some of national fisheries concerns.
Yeah, I can send you, John Reel put the whole thing together.
Yeah, I've seen it. No, I know.
Okay.
You're trying to distill that down to, I think, a paragraph or so. And what I was thinking is we can turn some of that language into specific responses to national wildlife's complaints.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, a distilled version of it would be good. And as I had said on some of our other calls with even with the lobbyists, any of these projects that have the word intertidal in them are particularly appealing.
Yeah, so Mayo Creek is right there. It's right on, obviously it's adjacent to the dredged area.
Right.
Howes Pond is similar because that's at the head of Duck Creek. I don't know if you know where that is, but basically there's a culvert that passes, underneath Main Street, almost at the intersection of Main Street and Route 6 near the mobile station. So near the piping plover, there's an old marsh in the back there, and there's actually a network, and it's fairly significant. And that's another culvert that has been, basically it only flows one way, there's no tidal exchange. So the proposal for that one as well is to open it back up and add a self-regulating tide gate, which would allow for intertidal exchange.
And what is the name of that location, Kurt?
That's Howes Pond,
H.
Hawes.
And can you do a blurb on that?
Yeah, I can do a blurb on that one too. Yep.
Kurt, where's that culvert for Howes Pond?
The culvert's basically just about in front of, really in front of the piping plover. So if you were to walk down that embankment, you'll find a culvert at the base of it. And that actually goes, feeds under the road into that marshy area behind the piping plover. And it's a pretty significant eel, eel breeding ground. And it was heavily used by turtles. It's now compromised. So, getting tidal exchange back in there is pretty important. The Conservation Commission has that as a very, very, very high priority project because it's also leading to a die-off of that marsh.
Yeah, and we are trying to get these responses out this week in the next few days. So,
Okay.
Kurt, if you could respond accordingly, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Now,
Joe,
Hillary is going to provide a list. Is that one of the projects that she's involved with?
we're working on that together. So if it's not on her list, we'll make sure it is.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, some of these projects are obviously, they're related to the, our committee, the Clean Water Advisory Committee's work.
Good. Okay, anything else on permits or permit-related items? We'll move on to engineering updates, and I don't have anything else other than what we've already covered. Merely an observation that somewhere between now and prior to October 1st, there will be a pre-dredged survey. Just like there always is, and then the post-dredge. Will, have you heard any specific date on that from GEI or?
No, but we can ask them tomorrow.
Yeah, good point. Oh, and I guess under engineering updates, one other thing is a reminder, we had talked about this a long time ago. Alfred had brought it up and we added it to the bid documents, but there will be a weekly coordination meeting with the engineer, with the contractor, with ourselves, and with the harbor master. So that was something additional that we added since last year's round of dredging.
Will, how is Nancy going to be looped in?
Nancy will be directly involved with us the whole time. Plus, she's on the phone with me all the time about whatever needs to get done.
Okay.
And she's in correspondence with Dan Robbins, and she will be as soon as we sign the bid documents and hire the contractor. She will be part of the meetings with them as well, going over all that.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Do we have any idea when she's going to do a pre-dredged survey of the shellfish?
You'd have to ask her.
What does that consist of, Alfred? Is it the location of grants or?
Well, the area that they're doing now wouldn't be the grants as much as, I mean, technically it should start the breakwater and come all the way in. So if anything happens, the shit fight's kind of gone. I mean, if you run over something, you know it was there, and that's what happened. But the last time the pre-survey didn't get done, so when there was a conflict, everybody said something different. My question is going around the corner by the bandstand and stuff. In the past, the dredge the barge got loose and it plowed a bunch of the stuff over. And I mean, if the stuff is gone, that's one thing. But even if it isn't, usually there's a survey to know what the value of the area is. And if the value is high enough at that point, we should get the stuff out of there so there isn't a conflict if there is a problem. I mean,
The value, you mean as a function of what shellfish is in there?
Yes.
If I remember right, last year in the area in and around the L Pier, instead of losing the shellfish, wasn't it opened up to some of the commercial guys to go in there ahead of time and take what you find? And if so, my question is that what we should be doing here?
That's what she sent around as a notice, specifically, to the shellfish community, to talk about actually doing the same thing here.
You can't do the same thing because you can't drag in there. There's too much.
I guess if we use the word harvest, you can.
Yeah, I just meant
harvest.
Yeah, removing the resource.
Would that be commercial or residential, or just commercial?
It's only open to commercial, I believe, at this point.
Yeah.
It isn't even open. I don't even know if it's open yet because of the closure.
Yeah, it is, Alfred. The results from DMF came back to allow it to be open.
Okay.
So it's not closed right now for that reason. But I don't know how much of the area is open to residential permit holders, which is typically during the off season. That season usually starts in, I think, about 4 weeks. So
yeah, end of October through April.
Yeah,
but my point is that someone, in this case, the commercial people, should be able to take advantage of it because I'm sure it'll get stirred up with the the traffic and the dredging. So I would think it would be
Yeah, it's-
attractive to harvest it now.
Well, in the past, not only was it harvested, but it was open to seed picking so that people with grants could take the stuff, unless Nancy's going to move it to a different location. But I mean, that's what I thought we were going to have a discussion on, which we never kind of did. Because in the past, the bar in front of the Harbor Master Shack, back maybe 150, 200 feet, was basically strip mined, so that in case something did happen, we didn't lose anything.
All right, it sounds like we have a very specific item for Nancy to follow up on. I'll be glad to send her an email, and then we can take it from there just to make sure it gets done timely, or find out when it will be done. Kurt, I know the closed area has been reopened, but have you seen any notice about telling people that they can and should go in and harvest in this area?
The only thing I saw was something that she sent out to the shellfish distribution list about, I want to say 3 weeks ago now, asking for ideas and suggestions relative to that area from the shellfish community. You know, her message being this is likely to be pretty heavily impacted. And so she wanted to hear from the shellfish community what they thought was the appropriate you know, response to take. I don't know what the results have been. It was just that was the request 3 weeks ago.
Well, I can send her a note saying that, you know, the question was raised at this meeting, and, you know.
Kurt, was Duck Creek also open?
CCB 11.
Yeah, but CCB 11 doesn't go all the way around the corner, I don't believe. I think I think we're confused maybe in the area or location, because it's never opened up this soon.
I got CCB 13, she opened it. And that came out September 10th.
So did she open the first part of Duck Creek, or is it opened all the way to the reason I'm asking is because usually I'm very surprised. First of all, it never opens because of Oyster Fest. For some reason, we can't open it until after that. But the second question I have is, like where Kurt did his oyster research, I mean, there's stuff on that bar that's definitely going to get pulverized. So, I mean, you would think that all that stuff should be cleaned up.
Yeah, I agree.
Even if it only gets located to someplace for future use.
She said on her shellfish crier, September 10th, that Chipman Cove is still under town management closure. And the 6 shellfish farms inside the breakwater are also within CCB 13. Have been able to harvest for at least a week or more. So, anyhow.
Well, I don't want to sound,
I
don't want to sound negative, but I don't know where we're going yet. How's that?
Yeah, I'll send a note out so that we get a response, and then we'll all know what the plan is. But
Chris, when you send the note out, why don't you ask her to commit to a date and time for the meeting that didn't occur, so Alfred, who had requested to be there, can be there this time?
okay.
Yeah, the big thing is if it's, you know, if, Kevin, you're right, it was CCB 13, I misspoke, it was not 11, it was 13 that was just opened. And that was the last one that was still closed. But to Alfred's point, yeah, further up, I don't know where they tested clean and where they tested still closed. But all that resource is you know, at risk, and, you know, at a minimum, it can be relayed. That's, you know, to your point, Alfred. I mean, even if it can't be harvested, you know, DMF can allow that stuff to be relayed someplace.
It's better than it going in the barge.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Out to God knows where. But you know, I mean, we have a couple of weeks here, but there's a lot of resource there that the dredge would be taking out, including even if it's just culch, even if it's just shell, that's still got value.
Kurt, what's she referred to a town management closure. What's that? What's the definition for that?
I think that's what Alfred's talking about. So basically up Duck Creek, that's typically under, yeah, she opens and closes that based on both the health of the water and the health of the shellfish populations up there. And so, she can keep something closed for pretty much as long as she wants to, if she with the right justification. Otherwise, it's got to be open to harvest every 3 years. So she can close it for, basically 2 years and 364 days, but then it's at least got to be open for a day under the regs. So management closure just means that she's decided it's not open until further notice, but under, within the Division of Marine Fisheries guidelines.
Thank you.
That's what we do for Oyster Fest. Usually if the water test comes back clean, we still don't open up parts for it until afterwards.
Right.
Okay, one other announcement I forgot, just to bring everyone up to speed on. If you remember, months ago, we submitted an application for an SEC grant. They have a new category this year whereby they reimburse towns for dredging design costs. So we had submitted that back in May for their August review, and we were successful. So just this past week, Will and Rebecca went down for the award. There were 16 presentations. SEC gave out a little over $705,000 for everyone.
Wow.
Cumulative. And the amount that we had submitted for after our 20% match was $39,600. So we were successful on that grant application.
Congratulations. That's great.
We're looking at a meeting date, Chris?
If we stay on a 2-week cycle, September 27th would work.
That looks good.
Everybody good with that?
Sounds good.
Okay, so noted. And that takes us to the most important item on the agenda. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
No, I was stating the title. Gotta start over. Someone needs to make the motion.
Move that we adjourn.
Okay, second.
I second the motion.
Kevin had his hand up. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Let's skip
Yeah.
out of it.
Okay, vote. Alfred,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Kevin,
Aye.
Skip,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Chris, aye. Very good.
Thank you,
All right,
everyone.
see you guys in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Joe, I'll be in touch tomorrow, Joe.
Yeah, please do.
Fantastic. You bet.